Well, welcome back. This is the second part of an interview with Misha. He was a contributor and poster of answers, particularly relating to Moscow and things Russian, on the website Quora. Had 25,000 or more followers, and some of them were quite good supporters, so that when the crunch came and sanctions kicked in and, well, wasn't getting paid at work, he couldn't move money around. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, the hell with him. I mean, geez, looks what's happening in Ukraine. Who cares about some middle class or relatively well-off guy in Moscow? What, he's got problems? Yeah, I know. But we don't hear much from the Russian side, as it were. And though people like to say that there's protests in Russia, there are some. There's not that many. Misha will tell you that in his office, most people are quite gung-ho about the war. Mostly the way. Look, I don't know whether you're watching from America or Britain or Australia or wherever, but you know, and I know, that if our countries went to war, no matter how ill-advised or inappropriate or foolhardy and perhaps downright wrong the war was, we wouldn't like to see our side taking a beating, now would we? So we'd back up the boys and the odd girl. Here. No. We'd be on the right side. Okay, let's hear more from him. Oh, no, anything you like, yeah. I half of my channel, I pretend to be defending the worst, everybody from Gaddafi to Saddam Hussein. If he had me on his media team, he'd be president today. Hello, and we're lucky enough to have Misha in Moscow. Now, there's some very narrowly focused people who might say, well, there's so many terrible things happening in Ukraine. Can't we have more suffering from there? Do we have to have a middle-class Muscovite and tell us how bad things are? But he's not telling us that. Are you, Misha? Hello and welcome back.
Hi, David.
Hi there. Yeah, I think last time we were looking at the way not just governments, but everybody kind of instinctively presents their stories in a modern media world. How you can have, it'd be terrible for Western countries to have a war where young soldiers were dying and families were on Facebook and tributes on Instagram, all of that kind of thing. But everybody seems to have a clever player in media. The Russian one seems kind of old-fashioned by comparison to the Ukrainian one, which I've got to admire it, don't you? It's impressive.
Well, I think that each side has a narrative, but what the new technologies they allow to provide to sort of to reinforce that narrative with facts, with photos, and with videos. And in this way, this is a very interesting conflict because each side has their narrative, their way of looking at things, and they can back it up with things, with documents or with photos or with videos, when maybe the Russian side a bit less so, well, they still find something to back it up with. And I think when you have sort of real information, real data to for your narrative, it becomes stronger. And then this is like a conflict between those narratives. And as you mentioned before, so there's this family, one sister in Ukraine, one sister in Russia, but each one of them has this narrative, very strong one, and because of that, they cannot find common ground.
No, and I must say, the report I was watching was from Fergal Keane of the BBC, and it was very well done. But the presumption was that we are all already on their side in a personal way, and naturally enough, because Ukraine. I'm not talking about the rights or wrongs of it. I'm just saying from a media presentation, they have a natural right to be the underdog because they got attacked first. But the presentation, nonetheless, is rather sometimes over milking this manipulation of sentiment on the ground, and we don't get a lot of deep background stuff about people who are perhaps not so charming to be on there. But
But it's the same here. Today I was on Arbat Street in the center of Moscow, and there were all these posters, billboards with pictures of children from Donbass. The
I
Idol.
was going to ask you. Yeah,
I mean,
Misha
here
has, I should say,
using the same techniques, sentimental kind of thing. Oh, look, those poor children. There was a war. Ukrainians are to blame. Look at them. Look at those faces, black and those huge black
I
and white
know.
faces of
What I'm going to
7-year-old
do, Misha,
children.
is I'm going to pop up these pictures because I've nicked them off your WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
And I was going to even ask you about that particular one because I thought,
and it's striking. I mean, you're walking. This is sort of the main promenade street in Moscow, very popular. It used to
right.
be. Now there's nobody there, it seems. But now you're walking and you see those huge pictures of children's faces, and it's sad and traumatized, and
Yeah.
obviously it works on your. And I look at those people, look at those children. There's Donbass children, and Ukrainians started a war there, and we
Mm.
saved them.
Um, I
It works
suppose.
very well. If you look, nobody wants to go very deep into things.
Yeah.
Everybody's got things to do in their own life, normal lives, right?
Mm.
But those things, I think they have great impact because they sort of address emotions and feelings, and it works.
Uh,
So on both sides, the same
Well,
techniques I used.
they are, but sometimes less effectively. I think a reporter will go where the story is, and if there was in the Donbass, really, I've never seen a good report from the other side because maybe they don't welcome Western media crews, and their local people don't do those kind of stories. I mean, it's hard to if somebody was in it's hard to say independent Russian media, but and you said to the army, look, I'd like to do what other places are doing, embed myself with your frontline troops for 10 days or so, and let people know how
See the other
difficult.
side of the story.
They wouldn't
But
put up with
but
that for
you
a
have to
minute.
realize that independent media here that existed until recently, now it's completely vaporized. It was
Mm.
pro-Western. They just repeated. I mean, you can. I was. I'm not trying to criticize. Just I think it's quite a. It's a fact. I mean, you can
Mm.
read a news article in the New York Times, and then you see all these presenters on Echo Moscow radio station. They were just just saying stuff from that article. So it was a bit like a Western media here.
Oh yes,
I
yes,
mean,
yes.
so I'm just saying they're not trying to find this common ground between sort of the official version of events. I mean, what you watch
Yeah.
on uh, on federal TV news, and between the Western side, Western news. They didn't
Why?
try to find kind of
Okay.
the truth in the middle. The truth is always sort of in the middle. They never did
Yeah, I guess
that.
so.
And it was very easy. I mean, why would you spend all this energy trying to figure out things for yourself if you can just copycat this narrative or that narrative?
Mm.
So they got shut down, I think, because it was just finally all right. So they just parroting Western point of view. They
And which, in a sense, was pretty much true anyway. They,
it
as you
was
say, they weren't able to get in to do their own
look.
stories,
I
so they
like
would.
I watch them. I listen to them because obviously I like to see the critical studies because once you I mean, the TV here was completely uncritical. It was just one barrage of nonstop, one side of the story, emotional and so on. So I wanted to see how they would criticize them. They did very well, but
Okay.
there was criticism and the Western side, but there was nothing constructive that they would build as alternative.
Right. I mean, why would it be? Do you think anybody within the official Russian media that, I mean, why? I can see how it actually would be an advantage to the presidency and the political Politburo to have a report from of some kind from within what the Russian troops were. I mean, surely bad things happened to them. I saw they made much of the Daily Telegraph here ran a video from um, the famous or infamous Azov battalion, which were, by the way, only a year ago considered neo-Nazi scum by the Western press, but now are kind of freedom fighters in some way. Anyway, the video had them picking off some armored, I think one tank and a couple of transport vehicles, but surely a story I'd be saying to my bosses in Moscow, look, why don't it's really unfair the way these weapons are being provided by the West. So in a secret way, they're actually in this war because they're giving them to people that they last year considered too dangerous to have around. Um, and here they are picking us off. You know, that would be a good story, and it would actually be very helpful to
But it's so
the.
subtle. The thing is, people don't want any subtleties. They want uh, simple, straightforward, uh, I'm right, they're wrong thing. They just, I think it's human nature, and there's nothing really you can do about it. I remember when I was little, I played with the kids in our courtyard of our apartment block, and I
Yeah.
always refused to play by the rules. I always wanted to change them a little bit, and but it doesn't work like that. You see,
Yeah,
there's an
people
official
get very
story.
upset, don't they?
So look, Kremlin has the official story, and I mean, obviously, they stay in power. They don't. They their decision has been made that they will keep staying in power. So they have one
Yeah.
story, and that's it. And they stick to the story. And
But
whatever doesn't suit the story, it just is wrong. And in a way, so in the West, the West has their own story, and
um,
they stick to the story. And
isn't there enough?
that's it. And that's how the sisters. They cannot find any common ground because there are two stories. They're completely different. For example, the Western media would report, look, Russians are bombing apartment blocks,
Yeah.
and the Russian media would report, look, those Ukrainian fighters are hiding behind women's
Yeah, the human
backs,
shields and all of that. Yeah.
and they just don't have any choice. So look, it is a very two, and obviously right now they're in the complete in the collision course. So those two stories in the collision course, and there is just not gonna be um, any common ground or any subtle alternatives to anything. I think only when it's over and after like lots of it be analyzed in the West, probably in Russia nothing gets analyzed.
Of
But after
course.
the whole thing will be analyzed, and I think slowly in the West, people realize that it's just not a good idea to have just two opposite stories, and that you probably need to have lots of stories for this kind of
Mm,
thing not to happen. But that will probably happen in years from now.
mm.
It,
Of course, it's the Ukraine and Russia are in a somewhat different position. Whatever, however, the story is told, the leaders of Russia today will survive it because, as you say, it's been set in concrete for some time. And barring ill health and accidents, touch wood, the old man, the old man will be there forever. I think there's a new. Is it right that the constitution was changed to allow 6-year terms and two of them back to
It
back?
doesn't matter. I mean, it's just manipulations. Obviously, what.
Okay, so it'll be around for a while anyway. But for though Ukraine is was far from a perfect democracy, it was open anyway. It was visible. You could talk about things and question things. I fear that poor old Volodymyr Zelensky will have to take a deal that after he makes it and there's peace and everybody's goes back to clean up everything, he'll have no choice but to quietly shoot himself because he would have done a deal that some people will hate him for forever.
Yeah, but wait, it's still going on. I mean, it's too early to tell. I
Oh
mean,
yes, I know that, but
we're not at the stage when it's kind of
don't you think that
clear.
any deal that
Yeah, I mean, it's still not clear what's going to happen next. Because again, I mean, in terms of sanctions, the Russians still don't feel them that much. Maybe in 1 week they will feel them quite a lot. I mean, and
but you
we
don't
don't know
feel
how the
these.
military operation for how long it will continue. So it's early to tell
I
what's.
know, but don't you think that with sanctions, if really only bite into most people after about 3 months, to have, I don't think militarily this can. I can't imagine it. Um, 3 months of this would be quite a mess. I don't even know what. I don't even know what there'd be to argue over after
Well,
three
look,
months.
the thing is, if all the cities and towns are gone,
Yeah.
somebody needs to rebuild them, and Russians will not rebuild them because there are just no resources to do it, and that will have to be the West. So I think the final deal will be more to advantage of Ukraine rather than Russia. Plus, additionally, Ukraine can be rebuilt like a normal sort of average European city because now it looks like Russia, to be honest. I mean, it looked like Russia.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with all its apartment blocks and stuff, once they're all gone,
Yes, that's no
you
great loss, is it?
then you can build
Uh,
low-rise apartment blocks like in Europe. So it will look like Europe, built with European money. So potentially, actually, Ukraine might benefit from the peace deal. It will be to the advantage of Ukraine. Although Crimea and Donbass are gone forever. Yeah.
oh yes, you don't hand back something you died getting.
Oh, and maybe part of the land for to get water to Crimea. You know,
I
the
think,
corridor, whatever they call it.
yeah, I think this still
They
be a
just look. You can't build any desalination plants,
no, no.
so it needs some water. But I think probably I assume that the final peace deal will be more to advantage of Ukraine rather than Russia.
Okay. I now you've as when you were introduced in here, we explained that you'd been lived in the United States, in Israel, absorbed the languages there, and all that comes with that, and that is quite deep when you take in the languages of a place and in a working way, not just know them but live with them day to day. Now, um, I've often had this probably, and I'm 66 now, naive view that have enough kind of open, free Western living and you won't go backwards. But, and so when people said, oh, worry about China doing, being ruled from the top or Russia being ruled from the top, I always thought, no, just give it some time. When a younger generation grows accustomed to everything being open, truly open, they won't allow it to go backwards. But clearly, I'm wrong. Um, has your experience suggested things in the much longer term are ever going to get better?
Well, I kind of think that the energy always needs to be in some kind of balance. I mean, you have right hand, you have left hand. There's night and day, and man and woman energy. So I think that you cannot have just democracies. Like all the countries cannot be democratic. I mean,
No?
Roughly half of them are democratic, half of them authoritarian. It's this balance. It's always here in the world, and
You think that's possibly a useful balance in some way?
I think it's sort of a black and white balance. It could be more like gray balance, I guess. It's a bit more subtle, I should say, because this is just a bit too much. Yeah, I mean, here clearly you have authoritarian regime, and
Mm.
here, and then in Ukraine is a bit of anarchy. So somewhere in the middle maybe, but overall, it just, in my opinion, that you just cannot have all the countries to be democratic, and it's the authoritarian regimes are over. They never come.
Why won't that, just as a working model, why wouldn't that work if all countries were democratic? Or when I
Uh,
say democratic, I don't mean to say this is a great and wonderful thing, just that it is you're teaching people to doubt what they're told and to challenge things, and this is a good thing.
because some people, they just don't want to. There are always millions and billions of people who just don't want to participate in any democracy. They
Yeah.
are fine with their lives, and they can take that. They get sort of repressed by the powers that they have, but that is balanced. That most of the time they just can do whatever they like. Because as I lived in the States and in Israel, and this I can compare it to Russia. Like in those countries, people a bit more kind of active. They just kind of like want to get things done. They want to participate in things. Uh, but here it's like just leave us alone.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm yeah, it's not that the authoritarian regime is just expression. I mean, the funny thing is actually it is democratic in a way, because that's the expression of what people want. And right now, I mean, it
Yeah.
might change, of course, everything can change. It might change in the future, tomorrow, but right now people are fine with that.
With
They're finding a way that they are left alone.
mm,
They don't need to do anything. They just can live their everyday life, and that's it.
you don't think that, or you don't find from your experience that the economy of a country is improved by a more open society.
Yeah, obviously. But this connection, uh, I don't think people see the connection, or even if they see the connection, they think, oh, it just too much for us, too much effort. It takes too much effort
Yeah,
to
it's
get there. I'm
true.
fine with this situation. Look, I wish I were like richer. I wish I had more things.
Mm,
I could afford more things, but I would have to do A, B, and C, and I don't really want to do A, B, and C. I'm
yeah.
fine with that. So it's um, yeah, it's and I think you just in my view you can't have the same thing everywhere, the whole world over. As I said, I don't think you can have democracy in every single country, or you cannot have authoritarian regime in every single country. And in a way, this fight between this Russia and Ukraine, you can see there's different ways of seeing things
Yeah.
and they clash and they have nothing in common.
And yet, historically, so you really think it was a very fragile glue that held Ukraine within the old Soviet
Yeah, it was.
Union.
And the general that I forgot his name. The general who spoke about the upcoming, or what he called upcoming war, and
Mm.
they warned that would happen. It would not be a good idea. He actually said that out of all the republics in the Soviet Union, the most problematic had always been Ukraine.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Ukraine was always a headache to Russia, and it's nothing new. And in a way, it was a headache to Russia because they're just different. They see things differently. They perceive things differently.
It seems like they had held Russia as a traditional enemy in the sense that certainly for the last, well, at least the last 8 years, probably longer, there's hardly been a building there that hasn't had an underground shelter built into it. The metro stations had been built with sheltering in mind. And they were kind of, even Zelensky said when he was trying to talk the war down, he didn't want that affecting the economy, the possibility, saying, oh, look, it's nothing new for us. We've been on a war footing prepared for years and years. And I don't know. Look, perhaps it is in a wider picture. There is some balance in what you say. If the world was all authoritarian, if China and Russia didn't have great misgivings about the West and America particularly, if there was no big America armed to the teeth with sophisticated weapons, then maybe if America was just another authoritarian regime, there would be more likelihood of wars because, two big tigers don't really get along in the same cage, do they?
Yeah, yeah. So that there is a balance, and I think right now the world is rebalancing. So now it's out of sync, but it will find a new balance. But there will be a balance. It won't be like all the countries are authoritarian or all the countries are democratic. It won't be like that. The two parts will find the balance, and I think this sort of this plate, when they collide, and this is the collision between the democratic and authoritarian regimes. They collide right now in Ukraine, and when it's over, I think there will be a new balance.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to work. I think that many people have fears of a greater conflict somehow starting. Personally, I think it's just impossible because Western governments simply don't declare war on anybody anymore. It happened in the Second World War due to very extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, but the fear that Russia will declare war on the West, which it might.
Well, certainly if there was any ambitions on the Baltic states, that would cause a serious problem. And
It's possible. It's possible.
that I just 2 months ago I would have said no, no. Even the most autocratic Russian leader would never attempt to take a NATO country. But I don't know. Do you think? Look, many people say that the perceived weakness of the West is only encouraging him. Do you think that is true?
Like hesitancy that West always, takes time to think, and being rational, like with not closing skies with the over Ukraine. So every step is very. I think by being rational, the West is very predictable, and you can find you can always find where to hit next. Because when you're
Right.
predictable and spontaneous, like Russia, it's very hard to predict what they're gonna do next. When a country or group of countries are rational, it's very easy to predict what they're gonna do next, and so then you can attack accordingly.
Something that's almost as mysterious to many people as the Russia and the outlook from there. Israel has always claimed itself as democratic, and I'm sure in many senses it is. I mean, their leaders get thrown around from side to side and upside down. But and I know allowances are made for the Hasidic Jews and the Orthodox ones. I mean, they've got special rules for almost everything. But how would you, when you from living there, did you see it as a same kind of Western democracy or something of its own, something unique?
Well, I could see it's an extremely complicated country, which in a way was a relief because Soviet Union was a bit, I think, too simplistic in a way. Yes, I saw it as democracy definitely in so many ways. That the way people communicated with each other openly, that you can just meet the mayor of the town where you live every week.
Right.
You can just go and meet him. Uh, so in small, little ways and in big ways, yes, I definitely saw it as democracy, but a very complicated democracy and very, lots of layers of complexities.
Mm,
Yeah, that
mm.
has to do with religion, with military, and what is what is Jewish,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it's different to many. So it's to Orthodox is one thing, to the state is
Yeah,
another
yeah.
thing. Uh,
Well, that's the thing. When you've got something that's a kind of artificial construction of history and tradition, um, that's never going to make much sense, is it? So it's difficult. It's going to be difficult.
I think in terms of Russia, the perception of freedom is to have all these open spaces and where you live and do what you like. And in Israel, I think the freedom is actually you can your social life, where you navigate your way
Okay.
in
Mm.
social life, which is you can elect a prime minister and it will have an impact. Your vote will have an impact. The way with your mayor, with the governor, with your neighbors, with just everyone. So this social sort of network, in this social network, Israel is very democratic. In
Mm.
Russia, being democratic, being free is to have really do what you like, kind of this freedom of a bit savage kind of freedom.
So, from the Russian idea of freedom is to be left alone and to rape nature in a friendly way. I don't know.
But you can have the opposite. You can have a low carbon impact and stop driving
Oh,
the
I wasn't
ride the
thinking of
horse.
the make love. Maybe I should have said make love to
I think
nature.
there's different expressions. You might be an oligarch who can have the biggest yacht in the world, or you can live in the taiga, in the
Yeah.
forest, and hunt. I mean, it's different expressions of this perception of freedom, but it's
Yes.
always this huge, this huge spaces and then this. I don't know. It's a very different perception of things from the West and from Israel.
I think when you mention the idea of space and freedom, um, I spent 20 years in Australia, and growing up there, it's a different generation back then, but there was this feeling of governments. They come and go, and they're all the same, and don't really want to know about them. Yes, there'll be rules, but look, personally, I'd rather be out in the great open spaces. Either not wrestling crocodiles exactly, but certainly uh, out in the countryside with a horse or something. It was much more a kind of the American sense of space is freedom, and you don't have to own it. Everybody can use it, travel through it, and whatnot. I mean, is there in Russia? There must be that sense too of the people outside of the city, the
Yeah.
land is
Yeah, it's
like
like
that.
I talked to my friend. He lives in the countryside, and he said, look, when the COVID started with all the restrictions and lockdowns, he said, look, for me, life didn't change. I have my own garden. I have my hands. I could leave my house anytime I like. Nobody wear any masks around me. So and then I could do whatever I want. So my life, you said, my life didn't change that much.
Hmm.
So yeah, in a way, this kind of freedom where you are
You
staying.
mentioned something else. It's really almost a different subject, but in a way not. Um, that I think we're talking about patriotic Russian movies. Now, that must have been different things at different times, but the movies has always kind of painted a view of a culture. Certainly, that's so clear in America. If somebody feels unsure of who he is or she is, well, go and see a movie, and that'll tell you who you're supposed to be. But what um, and what would be when you say a patriotic Russian movie? It's not just some blatant piece of propaganda, is it? Or it is?
I think like this whole thing with the Victory Day celebration that started in 2014,
Yeah.
where I think the state wanted to unite Russians around this victory in World War II, and that they're strong, that they won. And I observed the festivities around the holiday, and it was like a carnival. It was like a Halloween, like a big party.
Really?
So yeah, it just was my perception. I mean, they just like people wanted to have fun, and there's no Halloween in Russia, and there's no like carnival like in Rio or anything
Okay,
where
so
you can just
it's
dress up, where you can just dress up and have fun. So I think that people kind of feel that all this state-sponsored patriotism is not real, and they
mm.
can just use that as an opportunity to have fun.
Oh, look, there's many things in lots of countries like that, I guess. Almost every uh, bit of patriotic day. I mean, they used to
But,
have
but
a.
I'm saying that people here also feel that whatever comes from the state is just it's not authentic. It's some just kind of policy
Okay, yeah,
with
yeah.
whatever goals they have in mind. It's not something that comes from them.
Mm. I
And
also was, I was
yeah,
just wondering whether there's a certain kind of film that you could um, classify as a patriotic film. In when here's an example: the great Humphrey Bogart film Casablanca. It was originally a stage play. Everybody goes to Rick's, or I think they even think of calling it Round Up the Usual Suspects. But the ending was changed in the original. Uh, Rick just goes back to his bar and gets drunk, and he gets drunk with the corrupt French policeman, and they have a laugh. That's the end of that. But because America was then involved in the war with Japan and consequently the rest of the world, it was reshot just for the few seconds where Humphrey Bogart as Rick and Louis decide to go off and insanely join the Free French Foreign Legion somewhere, to play their bit in the war. Um, is it's a kind of a light touch propaganda and patriotic sort of thing, and a light even Germany's Second World War patriotic films were indirect. It'd be a village somewhere under attack or some crap, or a historical film with a twinge to it. Is there, or is it a light touch in a Russian patriotic
it is.
movie?
They just tried to just copy Hollywood movies,
Right.
but Russians have always been suspected of things which are not deep. If it's not deep, it's not real. So
Um,
they tanked like almost all the movies that have come out in the last 10 years. They've done very badly in the movie theaters, box office, very badly. And
you mean the
people watch the
state-sponsored
Hollywood movies.
ones?
People
Oh,
watch Hollywood movies, and they fared very well.
hmm,
Russian movies not so much. It look it people see it's fake that actors, directors, they got money from the state ordered them to make a movie. Movie don't look even they aesthetics, everything is American.
hmm.
People see it's fake, they don't want to watch it, they don't like it. So very few movies actually produced in Russia done well in the last decade or so.
I guess it's just not something that. Uh, well, the state probably doesn't put much money into it, and it's
Yeah,
made.
but the thing is, I think the focus was on federal TV channels. There, it's free. You
Okay.
don't have to go anywhere. It's at home,
Mm.
uh, and it's quite good quality actually, to be honest. So I think the focus, you just didn't have to go anywhere. It's all just on the TV, and it's nonstop
Right.
good stuff.
So now, just before we go, this obviously this changed a lot and fairly quickly, and affected your work. And at the moment, you're living just with your daughter. Is that right?
Yeah, my daughter, well, right now she spends weekends with your mom,
Right.
and she's here for 5 days a week because she goes to preschool. It's nearby. Uh,
It's a very
I
Western
I
arrangement.
I work, yeah, I work from home, and I'll be back in the office on Mondays.
Mm,
But it's quite affected quite badly the company because my boss has a factory in Riga,
right.
Latvia, then another one in Czech Republic, then
Mm-hmm.
an office in Kiev, which is now
Wow.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
uh, and so he lost, or yeah, and then also he used to purchase APIs, substance for medicines that he manufactures in Russia. He purchased that from China, and now he cannot pay for it. So, anyways, so there's
Mm, mm.
so in 1 week you lost quite a lot of business.
And how are people in? Have you been in touch with people from the office? How are they
Yeah, they're
coping?
extremely patriotic. They're 100% behind the president and very Z-driven.
Okay. That must make some from.
But the funny thing is what I hear. My colleagues, my colleague, he tells me,
Yeah.
he goes to office every day, and he says, "Look, the same people who are like always, oh, I like to go to Spain. I like to travel to Italy. I like Italian like food. I'm gonna spend my next summer vacation in Portugal. Now it's like the enemy.
Mm. Oh, really? They turned on them. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it only takes. People have resentments, don't they, for somebody, for everything. And when there's a change of view or something happens, it's a good opportunity to get those things off your chest that you didn't
very
really like about them anyway. So they can uh, they can have a go. But it's um, now I guess nobody can really predict anything at the moment. But our friends and colleagues, mm, I don't suppose they're thinking of leaving, looking for work and life. I
Um,
guess they can't really, can they?
no, I mean they're all here. Nobody's left Russia.
Mm,
Nobody's left Moscow. Everyone is here. I mean, I've always, I mean, to try to treat everyone equally. I mean,
yeah.
like any other person. But to be honest, with my background living in other countries, I don't know if
Mm.
they're gonna treat me. To be honest, I'm a bit,
Well, you know what it is
like
when
monthly.
there's on a wartime footing in any
Yeah,
place, they look around in the group and they look for the person who most fits the outside underminer, the
yeah,
one who is the troublemaker, possibly a spy. Should we check him on the way out?
yeah.
Well, what's on that little memory stick he's always carrying? After all,
I I have been nice to everyone, like literally to everyone.
Mm.
So it'd be interesting to really find out what they think about me.
Well, for those who don't know already, Misha has got he's put in some serious hours on Quora, and Quora is if you don't know that, is a kind of Q&A website which has been going for quite a few years, in which it's kind of like an up-to-date, on-the-spot Wikipedia, where instead of articles, you'll get answers to questions. And Misha has, what, you've got like almost 30,000 followers or something, haven't you, on
Yeah,
Quora?
they're not active, most of them.
No, I know people list themselves. It's like I've got subscribers who I don't know where the hell they are. Where are
Yeah.
you? What are you doing? You drunk again? Going back on drugs? In jail? That's likely, most likely. But anyway, I don't hear from them much except for a core of desperados. Um, yeah, and so they're concerned for Misha too, because this you've got one foot out there, but Anyway, it's been great to talk to you
Thank you,
and
David. Yeah, thank you
your
so much.
wider views. And if something interesting happens, which I'm sure it will at some point,
Yeah, probably every day
back.
now. Every day.
I know, it's true. All right then, take care and eat well. That was the second part of Misha Farah's remarks about living in Moscow and life there and how he grew up. You know, I think I should take this opportunity to ask if there are people who've been watching who've had, let's say, at least these experiences, lived in two, better yet more, but at least two quite different countries, cultures, and absorbed the languages of each, and whose command of English is certainly good enough to express that which they need to us, so we understand what's going on, or at least speak another language that I speak. And that's not many. Anyway, you know what I'm after? Somebody who can open our minds a bit to things we don't know. And really, isn't that the point of watching anything? Well, no, all right. I can put you to sleep or something. Speaking, I mean, not injectables. Okay, you know what I want? Give it to me, or if you don't, watch whatever I come up with next, if it's worth watching. Might be. See you for now.